there, my name is Maeve McCormick and you're very welcome to the Europe Direct Sligo Soapbox Speech Competition 2022. The motion this year is Europe listening to its young people? And we're coming to you from Sligo County Library. Before we go any further, we're going to have a welcome from Cathaoirleach Michael Clark. Cathaoirleach.
I am delighted to open the Europe Direct Soapbox Competition here in Central Library, Sligo. This is an annual event sponsored by the European Commission. This event consists of two public speaking competitions, one for 16 and under, the other for 17 and over. The National and Regional Soapbox Competition will be held online again this year. The competition topic for discussion is Europe listening to its young people? The contestants will have 3 minutes on this subject to debate for or against in the hope they convince the judges of their point of view and ultimately win the prize. The prize for the overall national winner will get €1,000 and receive the coveted title of the National Europe Direct Soapbox Winner 2022. The recordings will be posted on Europe Direct Facebook and on YouTube pages. The final will take place on Tuesday, 13th of December at 11:30 a.m, which will be streamed live with pre-recording videos. This is a good opportunity for young and old to showcase their public speaking skills. The EU declared 2022 the European Year of Youth, with the main focus on the importance of European youth, endeavouring to build a better future, which is greener, more inclusive and digital. I look forward to listening to the different viewpoints of the contestants and their opinion on its success. I wish the contestants the very best of luck, and a big thank you to the judges who have the enviable task of choosing a winner. Good luck to everybody.
Chris McManus, MEP here, speaking from the European Parliament in Brussels. First off, I wish to thank everyone in Sligo County Library for the invitation to say a few words for this year's Soapbox. And the topic this year, is Europe listening to its young people? Very appropriate, given that 2022 is the European Year of Youth. This gives us all the opportunity to celebrate our young people and the contributions they make to our communities and societies. The Year of Youth is also an opportunity for you, our young people, to tell us as legislators what you need, particularly so in a post-COVID world. Because COVID was a global event that disproportionately impacted young people. You've sacrificed a great deal, missing nights out, giving up sports, meeting up with your mates. All of this to keep our community safe. That is why I believe our youth should be celebrated for the huge efforts you've contributed to helping us reach where we are today. For my part as an MEP, we have seen the European Parliament take positions in passing reports recognising the impact of COVID-19 on young people within the EU, particularly in the context of the closure of educational, cultural, youth and sports activities. Housing insecurity for our young people has become more pronounced in recent times. Specific policies for youth are all well and good, but we must look at the type of society young people are growing up in and entering as adults. That means tackling serious issues such as housing, properly resourced community facilities, decent pay, a living wage, mental health services accessible to all, and genuine action to combat climate change. So is Europe listening to its young people? I can't speak for Europe, but I hope I am. Accordia, I do have optimism for the future. Without question, we live in uncertain times, but these times need the energy, commitment and passion of our young people to help us meet the very real challenges we all face. So thank you all for the efforts you have so far contributed and continue to contribute, not only for yourselves and your communities, but for future generations. Mulla Noige agus Chucky Sheed, Guramaigh Galéir.
Now to tell you a little bit about the competition. Each contestant will make a 3-minute speech either for or against the motion, "Is Europe listening to its young people?" We have 2 age categories, 16 and under and 17 and over. We have 3 judges this year: Eddie McGurran, Chief Judge, Kieran Timmins and Marie O'Connor. And now we're going to go over and say a quick hello to Kieran Timmins.
Hello everyone, my name is Kieran Timmins and I am here representing my fellow judges, Eddie McGurran and Marie O'Connor. And we are very much looking forward to seeing and hearing your speeches and wish you all the very best.
Thanks, Kieran and judges. All speeches for the competition have been pre-recorded and they've been assessed by the panel of our 3 judges, with equal marks awarded for content, delivery, structure and overall impact. The decision of the judges is final. So, now that we've all the rules out of the way, let's get over to the first round of our competition for our 16 and under competitors. Our first competitor today is Alana Guckian-Walton. Alana.
Is Europe listening to its young people? Hi, my name is Alana Guckian-Walton. Over the last 10 or so years, the phrase Europe's brain drain has been thrown around. This is a light title which has been placed on a serious problem. Currently, 1 in 10 people in the EU live in a region facing this challenge. So what exactly is the brain drain? The brain drain refers to a lack of citizens within the working force and a lack of skilled people. Within these mainly rural parts of Europe, there are a lack of youth moving forward towards college, or those who do attend college move out of the country for a better life. So what does this tell us? It tells us, quite frankly, that the energy of the youth will be better rewarded in more focused areas of Europe. We are leaving parts of our European community behind. Why would any reasonable person work hard to get a good degree just to lose out on a high-paying opportunity elsewhere? It's illogical. The real problem is the lack of opportunities built for today's youth. Coming from a secondary school student's perspective, the jobs I wish to pursue are close to none in Ireland, and this lack of opportunities cannot be fixed by the generation that endures them, because the jobs that are needed to fix this problem are not available to our age range. So what else can we do but plead with our elders? Yet so far, very little has been done. This poses the initial question of my speech: are we, the young people of Europe, being listened to? I can try and suggest a few solutions. Quite simply, give small rural communities resources. This includes education, but most importantly, jobs for the new generation. Let us, the community of Europe, build a world for our youth, and in turn, build a home for us all. Let's talk about mental health. When someone was asked, "How's your mental health?" a few decades ago, it would have been seen as an insult. Thankfully, that is not the case today. Mental health is openly talked about in most parts of Europe. So why is mental health an urgent issue for Europe? Young people are 30 to 80% more likely to experience depression or anxiety since the pandemic started. What we can do for this problem is provide mental health services for the youth. I'm aware that these services do exist, such as the likes of CAMS, but services like these are poorly run, and it can take up to 2 years to be treated by these facilities. Within even a month, a person's mental health can reach lows that unfortunately sometimes end in suicide. Mental health services need to be held to a higher standard. My family has a history of needing mental health services. Unfortunately, in one case, we ended up losing a family member. I can't help but wonder, if our mental health services were more funded, reliable, and accessible, how many people would still be with us today. We can't go back and ask our loved ones what we could have done better. We can ask real people living with these problems now. All we need to do is listen. Our youth needs help. It feels like too little is done when so much is needed. The youth of Europe needs to be heard, not dismissed.
Thank you, Alana. You've certainly given us plenty of things to think about there, raising many of the issues facing the youth of Sligo and Europe. Our second speaker in this category is Conor White.
Is Europe listening to its youth? I assume that this question is in regard to the European Union, by default, the European Commission. The European Commission launched this year Visionary 3D, Voice Your Vision platform in Ireland. This platform allows young people from Ireland to upload voice recordings with their thoughts on a range of issues, from the future of Europe to mental health and even climate change. This is to ensure that the youth policy can be developed. Previously to this platform, you could write, email, or phone the European Commission. All you have to do is type "Contact your European Commission" into Google. The first 5 pages have links to contacting them directly. Visionary 3D is another effort of the European Commission, going to where we are and trying to make contact with the youth of Ireland. When you contact the European Union, you can communicate in 26 different languages, including Irish. If I spoke in French right now to most people, I don't think that they would reply. Yet the European Commission will reply to me within 48 hours. Est-ce que vous m'écoutez? Est-ce que vous me répondez? Est-ce que vous m'incluez? Because the European Commission will. What else can the European Commission do to include us and listen? They listen and include and reply in 26 different languages, over 20 different platforms, and develop youth policies as a result. Have you contacted the European Commission?
Thank you, Conor. That was some fascinating information on how to communicate with the European Commission. So get out there and contact the European Youth Portal. We're now going to move on to our third speaker, and that is Dara Kilcommons.
Is Europe listening to its young people? Hello, my name is Dara Kilcommons. I am a TY student in Sligo Grammar School. And today I will be discussing how the youth of the modern world have been dismissed by the European Parliament. Europe is not listening to its youth. Young people are crying out for a voice and a chance to be heard, and though our representatives may hear the cries, there is little evidence to suggest that they have actually taken them into account. The young people of the continent of Europe are going under the political radar, daily. People such as 15-year-old Greta Thunberg have proved that the political landscape is changing, in that it allows for a young person to hold so much influence, most notably being given the opportunity to speak at the UN Climate Summit in New York and delivering her acclaimed "How Dare You" speech. However, it has been 4 years since Thunberg has become a household name, and yet Europe's youth still have minimal power in actual policy making. I personally disagree when someone says that young people should have official positions within Parliament. We don't have a master's in international law at the age of 15, unfortunately. This means we are not educated enough, or not to mention have anywhere near the amount of experience within politics that MEPs would. We are simply not qualified for a position of that magnitude. Though I may often disagree with them, these representatives are some of the best in their field, but their field is politics and law, not activism. Young people, though, have unintentionally become well-informed in many areas of activism. It has inadvertently become a central part of our life, not just through school, but also through social media. I mean, you cannot spend 10 minutes on TikTok without some sort of an awareness video popping up. Though this doesn't give us the right to enter Parliament and start making laws, it should give us the right to have an influence in what they contain and how they're enforced. Something that we're hearing more and more about is the economy. Recently, we have all heard about the surging inflation and potential recession, brought on by overspending. The European Union has a huge amount of debt, and we, the young people, will be mostly responsible for paying it off. But yet we are the only people who do not get a say in the Eurozone's financial decisions. I assume the reason that politicians ignore us is because they think we simply don't care about finance and the economy. But with its growing presence in the news, that's changing fast, and we're becoming more and more aware of the disastrous financial situation. I'm going to end on a quote by Aaron Burr in the musical Hamilton. I want to be in the room where it happens. These are my arguments opposing the motion, is Europe listening to its young people? Thank you.
Thanks, Dara. You've been talking to us about young people being under the radar and the need for improved representation of young people by our elected representatives. Definitely a lesson for us all there. Our next speaker is Ella Pearce.
Good afternoon. My name is Ella, and today I'm going to be discussing why I feel that Europe is not paying much attention to its young people. Over the years, there has been much controversy as to whether or not Europe actually listens to its population of young people. Whenever a serious world-changing topic arises, we are quick to see the world of politics jump on the topic and express their concern. However, when 15-year-old Greta Thunberg decided to skip school to protest outside Parliament in order to express her concern for the rate at which climate change is occurring, the world paid very little attention to her. Instead of being listened to, Greta was mocked. In response to this, she said, "We should take it as a compliment that we are having so much impact that people want to silence us." Greta continues to fight for action against climate change. However, it took quite some time for her message to be taken seriously by world leaders and politicians. The world appeared to be too caught up in its own problems to listen to her. And yet, we have to wonder, had it been the likes of Boris Johnson voicing his opinion, would he have received a different response? Would his opinions be respected and taken into account simply because of his political position and age? The fact that it took so long for Greta's efforts to make an impact is beyond worrying for our generation. And we have to question, is Europe actually listening to us? In the year 2019, Bernardo's carried out research in order to find out how young people actually feel about the future ahead of them. The results showed that 62% of teenagers feel that the government cares more about older generations than their own. 42% feel that older generations seem to be uninterested in the topic of climate change, and 62% feel that the focus on Brexit has resulted in a lack of moving forward. As well as all this, 67% of our generation feel negatively about their future, and a solid 69% feel that their mental health will be badly affected in the coming years. This report, which includes results from the YouGov survey of over 1,000 young people, paints a picture of a generation who feel they are not listened to by decision makers when it comes to challenges facing the EU. The results of the YouGov survey and the responses that Greta Thunberg initially received prove that there has been little consideration for the opinions of young people by politicians over the past few years. However, this issue has been recently recognised and efforts are starting to be made by the EU to include younger generations in the world of politics. The EU declared 2022 as the European Year of Youth in order to promote youth political participation and to acknowledge young people's expectations, rights and needs. This event shines a light on our generation and hopefully we will continue to see efforts being made by Europe to make our voices heard.
Thanks, Ella. You certainly gave us some very stark statistics there on the feelings and opinions of young people. So hopefully events like the Year of Youth will help address these issues. Next we have Jelly Castillo.
Good morning everyone. My name is Jelly Castillo and I am here today to share my opinion on Europe and if it is taking into consideration the voices of its young people. I believe we're in the new beginning of a new era where Europe is involving the younger generation in politics and current problems within the region. Whatever the topic regarding education, security, employment, or the environment, more Europe and closer cooperation is the answer. Young people are key stakeholders in Europe's future. Our future will be determined by today's decisions. This year, 2022, is the European Year of Youth. The EU guarantee are working to improve circumstances for young people, and they help to bridge the divide and get young people into work, which guarantees young people under the age of 30 who sign up will receive an offer of a job, apprenticeship, education, or training within the first 4 months. This allows people to build the sufficient lives they've always wanted and will improve the quality of life for generations to come. Unemployment rates in Ireland is 6.63% of the population, and this guarantee can help reduce it significantly. It is vital to understand the hopes and expectations of young people to further advance and improve the European project. This is a quote said by Brian Agger, Secretary General at ERT, As a young person living in Europe, this mindset motivates me to be vocal about my concerns and my opinions, as well as helping to contribute to solve problems in any way I can to improve our future lives. However, I must add that even though I believe the EU are listening to its young people, they are only listening to us to a certain extent and try to resolve issues they think are important. It was frustrating to see how long it took for politicians and decision makers before they took into account the concern of Greta Thunberg and her concern for the climate crisis. She was ridiculed by thousands for expressing her messages. In her words, "I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day. And then I want you to act as you would in a crisis." We are an evolving species. If we want to get anywhere, we have to start somewhere. And I believe Europe is listening to its young.
Jelly, thanks so much for that optimistic and forward-looking take on the motion under discussion. But you do include a caution that Europe needs to keep on its toes, as we all do. Our next speaker is Isabel Sheen.
Hello, my name is Isabel Sheen, and I believe that Europe isn't listening to its young people. On the news, I always see adults giving their opinions on topics that are being talked about. I never see a young person voicing their opinions, even if the issue concerns the youth of today. Young people should be involved in discussions regarding choices that will affect us. Many adults consider social media to be the sole problem causing bad mental health in youth. But in fact, it is only the wider form of communication for the few it affects. It hurts. Many more were helped. We need to stop blaming an app for bad mental health and start helping those who are affected with real mental health facilities and resources. So all in all, I don't think the youth of Europe are being listened to. The government is set in its ways of tradition and the past and is reluctant to change. We are the parliament of the future and change can start today.
Thanks, Isabel, and I agree. Yes, let's have more young people on the news. And yes, you are the parliament of the future. Let that be a warning to all of us. Next, we have Jessica O'Reilly.
Does Europe listen to its youth in terms of the environment? I am 16 years old, and I believe Europe does not listen to its youth in terms of the environment. I turned 16 only 2 weeks ago, but I have been filled with responsibilities ever since. If I had said that I was 13 or 14 or even 15, people would say I'm way too young to be talking about the environment because I've only lived a life that is very short in comparison to many others. In terms of climate change and myself, I haven't had enough experiences in many people's minds for me to actually have an opinion on it. But, like many other people, we have also experienced much more than they think that we have because of how bad things have gotten recently. I feel as though I have experienced twice as much as anyone my age did in, say, 1920. I know not everyone pushes a child's mindset aside, but I believe that some people will hear this speech and just throw it aside as though it is nothing and won't see what I'm trying to show you. I don't say to leave big issues like this to them, but the thing is that we have gotten so much worse and they have done nothing about it. By the time we are old enough, as they say, to have a public opinion, it will be too late to help at all. Our planet is dying and we need to do something as soon as possible. And we can't hold back any longer. We have to do it. As the youth of Europe, we need to work together for a better future. World leaders of the UN called a meeting on November On November 1st of 2021, in Glasgow, Scotland, over 400 of these world leaders arrived in private jets to hold a climate conference. Isn't that ironic? Did you know that a 4-hour journey on a private jet is equivalent to the carbon footprint of an average European in a year? These people who we are depending on to help the planet are doing this. Scientists estimate that Elon Musk's carbon footprint is around 7,493 metric tons of carbon. In Ireland, the average carbon footprint per person is 13.5 tons. This average is from a survey in 2015. We've improved much since. These people that are responsible and tell us to be more responsible for the environment are supposed to be thinking for the future and are able to walk around getting praised for wearing the same outfit more than once instead of throwing it away, while we sit here getting given out to for putting the wrong piece of plastic in the wrong bin. That's why I disagree with the statement.
Thanks, Jessica, and a timely reminder that the 21st century has very discerning youth population, and it's important that these groups are consulted now and not later. Our next speaker is Nessa Phelan.
I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day. And then I want you to act. This was said by a then 16-year-old Greta Thunberg to a room of world leaders. Greta is a young adult devoted to tackling the threat of climate change. Although this is a serious issue, she was mocked by the media for speaking out. This sparks the question, is Europe listening to its young people? I disagree with this statement. There are many issues today that I feel the youth of Europe should have more of a voice in. As we are the future of this continent, we will be the ones to have to deal with the consequences of the decisions being made today. An extremely important issue in Europe right now is climate change. All over Europe, young people are seeing environmental crises unfold one after another. We are angry that not enough has been done. This has been shown through the Fridays for Future movement. FFF is a youth-led and organised climate strike movement. What started as Greta Thunberg sitting outside of the Swedish Parliament has skyrocketed to a global movement to help our youth have a voice in what is being done to fight this threat. But what has changed? Yes, last year the European Commission set the aim of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. But as Climate KIC CEO Dr. Kirsten Dunlop said, we say we want carbon neutrality by 2050, but we're still subsiding fossil fuels. The governments of Europe are still profiting greatly off of fossil fuel using companies. This shows how even though the youth is trying, our voices are not being heard, as it benefits the governments of Europe not to listen. Another issue in Europe today that will affect our future is inflation. Inflation is the general increase in prices. This time last year, the inflation rate of the EU was 3.7%. As of September 2022, it has rose to a whopping 10%. Young people are less likely to have savings as they are only beginning the start of their financial lives. This means they are more likely to not have enough money during this time. With the financial positions of young people being centred around paying off rents and student loans, how are we expected to survive under these conditions? It is clear that Europe is trying to include the youth more in discussions, as this year being the European Year of Youth. But this is just one step to achieve a greater link between the generations of Europe to help solve our problems.
Thanks, Nessa. A very clear message from you there on behalf of the young people of the country on addressing climate change. Our next speaker is Phoebe Henry Seitz.
Hello, my name is Phoebe Henry Seitz, and today I'll be presenting my views on whether Europe is listening to its young people. I'm taking Europe to mean the people in power across Europe, and I'm taking listening to mean acknowledging and acting on young people's thoughts and opinions. The simple answer is no. I don't believe Europe is listening to its young people. It never has, and I don't believe it ever will. Europe only listens to its politicians, who in turn only listen to the corporate world, the area of the world that creates wealth. In the neo-capitalist society we live in, making money or attaining power are regarded as successful outcomes, even when at the expense of others. In simple terms, it's the survival of the fittest. And if you don't have money or power, you don't have a voice. If you don't have a voice, no one can ever listen to you. Young people don't have money or political power, leaving them with no voice and no one to listen to them. It's a sad reality, but it is a reality. To believe Europe was ever listening to its young people is ludicrous and incredibly naive. These opinions are very difficult to change, and I doubt they ever will. In the capital corporate world we live in, no one is going to hand us, the young people, the microphone. If Europe wants to progress, then they have to understand that they need to listen to the upcoming generation and the voice of Europe's youth.
Thanks, Phoebe. You're certainly laying it out to us there, calling for Europe to listen more to young people. Our next speaker is Roisin Horan.
Hi, my name is Roisin. Today I'm going to give my opinion about the topic, is Europe listening to its young people? My opinion after researching this topic is yes, Europe does listen to its young people. I'm basing this statement on the following information that I found during my research. First of all, there are several different programs and organisations throughout Europe whose focus is about listening to the younger generation and engaging with them. This year is the European Year of Youth, and because of this, the EU has adopted the first Youth Action Plan to strengthen engagement with young people worldwide. The Youth Action Plan responds to the demand by young people to be involved in a more structured way in EU policy and decision-making processes. This shows that they do hear our demands to be more involved and they care what we have to say. The Youth Action Plan is the first ever policy for a strategic partnership with young people around the world to build a more resilient, inclusive and sustainable future. It will help deliver on international commitments such as the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Climate Agreement by enhancing meaningful youth participation. I personally think that this Youth Action Plan is very important for young people in Europe today because it gives us a real voice to shape the solutions to the world's biggest problems, such as climate change and inequality. Young people today have the important role of building a better future, so it's really important that we're listened to. The EU have begun by making a commitment to increase the voice and leadership of young people across Europe, particularly young girls, youth activists and organisations. And they're setting up more organisations in which we can make our voices heard. They've set up many organisations such as the Youth and Women in Democracy Initiative, whose aim is to increase the voice and leadership of young people, youth activists and youth-led organisations across the world by strengthening their rights, empowerment and participation in political and public affairs. So once again, based on my research, I do believe that Europe is making an effort to listen to its young people, as we are so important in building a better, more sustainable future. Thank you for listening.
Roisin, thank you for that. It was very informative around the Youth Action Plan 2022, which is relevant to all of us. Our next speaker is Shane Dunleavy.
Is Europe listening to its young people? Do you think we're being listened to? Have our opinions been acknowledged, or is change being made? These are questions we must ask ourselves to help better our future. I strongly believe that Europe is listening to its young people, and here's why. I ask, in your opinion, what is the most concerning issue that we face today? Climate change. We've been fighting relentlessly to help reverse the dramatic consequences of climate change. This fight is being led by young activists such as Greta Thunberg and Samara Asunce. The EU are finally taking the initiative to help fight climate change by making EU countries cut carbon emission by 55% by 2030, eventually hopefully making the EU carbon neutral by 2050. EU countries have committed to spending 30% of the EU's long-term budget for 2021 to 2027 on natural resources and environment. That's 1,074.3 billion being spent in an effort to fight climate change. As well as this, they have also announced the EU Green Deal, which is essentially a plan to help the EU economy transition into a sustainable economic model. The Green Deal was set up in 2019 and includes measures such as developing cleaner modes of transport and investing in environmentally friendly technologies. Climate change is an issue that affects us young people specifically. It is our future that is in danger, which is why we are so vocal about it. It is clear to me the EU are listening. Changes are being made and action is being taken. Climate change isn't the only issue we are continuously fighting against. Gender inequality is another major problem our generation is so vocal about. How are the EU listening to us when we speak on these issues? Well, in terms of gender equality, the EU set up the Gender Equality Strategy. Their goal is to allow people to be free to pursue their chosen path in life, and to take part in and lead our European society. Their aims are to end gender-based violence, close gender gaps in the labour market, and address the gender pay and pension gaps, to name just a few. Changes are being made and action is being taken. The EU adopted its new strategic approach to women, peace and security in December of 2018. The Commission is monitoring the implementations of the Gender Action Plan too. It makes sure that gender equality is present in all policies. As a result of this plan, progress is being made towards stopping violence against women and girls, improving women's socio-economic rights, and increasing female participation in decision-making processes at all levels. Europe is listening to us. Again, action is being taken and changes are being made. It is clear our voice is being heard. So to conclude, do we have a long way to go? Undeniably so we do. However, Europe is listening. Changes are being made and action is being taken. And if we continue to be heard, I'm hopeful for a better future for my generation. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. You certainly packed that presentation with EU information around EU measures about climate change, gender and equality. Our next speaker in this round is Shauna Walsh.
Driving a car, undertaking higher education, entering employment and paying taxes, being a primary care for my family. These are a few of the things I can do as a 16-year-old living in Western Europe. But despite this, I remain excluded and unheard in formal policy making and in the elections that shape our society and ultimately my future. This is not just the case for me, but for the millions of young people all around the world. Welcome adjudicators and fellow competitors. My name is Shauna Walsh and I believe that Europe is not listening to its young people. As the right to vote is restricted to those only over the age of 18, it means that young people's views and opinions are not heard or represented by the politicians that are elected. By lowering the voting age, it would give young people a greater input into the decisions and actions that directly impact them, their communities, and their futures. Young people would be listened to so much more because their voice and vote would matter to politicians. By doing this, we would not only create a more vibrant, democratic European society, but also be investing in our future. The EU has made efforts to include young people more in certain decisions and discussions. However, this effort seems tokenised and insincere. A prime example of this was in March 2020, when Greta Thunberg spoke in Brussels to MEPs, as the EU unveiled a proposed law, which, if passed, would make it a legal requirement for the EU to be carbon neutral by 2050. In response, Thunberg said, "If your house was on fire, you would not wait a few more years to start putting it out." And yet that is what the Commission is proposing today. Despite her avid opposition to the proposed law, it was still passed. Thunberg was reduced to yet another young European citizen whose concerns were not listened to. This example highlights how youth involvement is a simple tick-the-box exercise for the EU. In conclusion, I believe Europe is not listening to its young people. I believe lowering the voting age will give young people the opportunity to speak and be heard. As Thunberg best put it, When your house is on fire, you do not wait a few years to start putting it out. Europe needs to listen to its young people before it's too late. Thank you.
Thanks, Shauna. You gave us a very striking list there of what 16-year-olds can and can't do, and you've given us a clear call to lower the voting age. Now, that concludes our speakers in the 16 and underage category. So we're going to move on to the next category, which is for people aged 17 and over. We have 2 competitors in this competition for that section. Our first competitor is Alfie Barron.
Citizens, I'm sad to say that I'm lost at sea. My opinion is lost within a torrent of dissenting views and political lobbying. My name is Alfie Barron, and I am here today to oppose the motion that Europe is listening to its young people. If we lose the youth, we lose the future. A simple phrase, yet it captivates the motion. The youth are those that will inherit the world. Sadly, it is with a heavy heart that I have come to oppose this motion. With every fibre of my being, I yearn to claim that indeed the institution that I and so many young people hold dear is indeed listening to us and making strides to make our futures brighter. As a person involved in politics at youth level, it pains me to state that Europe is not listening to our needs, and it is not doing enough to help us. Our voices are being drowned out among a sea of louder opinions. When I look at my community, I see a wide diversity of people. We, as young people, currently live in a racially diverse Ireland. Then imagine my horror when I read the latest European Network Against Racism report on racial diversity, that people of colour make up only 4% of MEPs. Is it possible that the reason that Europe is not listening to us is because Europe is not reflective of us? And we can go on and on. We can look at gender. We can look at people with differing physical and mental characteristics. And we will find that yet again, each group is underrepresented at every political level of activity across Europe. Can you really listen if you do not reflect the people you represent? Do you need to have people working with you who are attuned to the voices of those in need? I believe you do. And as we have not yet achieved a truly reflective political body, we have a difficulty in listening to those underrepresented groups. With a continually aging population dominating the demographic, how can the titan that is Europe claim that it is representative of some of its future leaders? The youth of today are the people who will grow to continue the work of this illustrious institution. How can the current model claim that youth are the shoulders upon whom the future rests if they fail to support us in the present? If we don't pay the necessary attention to our youth now, how can we expect them to represent us in that not so distant future? And citizens, you might turn this back on me and rightly ask, what are young people doing to make themselves heard? And I will tell you that voter participation amongst the 18 to 25-year-old age group has been increasing year on year since 2017. But what happens then? There is a significant drop-off in engagement in the 25 to 35-year-old age group. It is almost as if these young people who turned out to vote weren't listened to. Even the fact that I'm up here today, amongst so many other young people, shows that we want to be heard, and eventually our voices won't be drowned out. If we truly want our democratic ideals to stay afloat amongst this sea of conflicting opinions and poor representation, then it is imperative that we include our youth in European affairs today, instead of waiting until it is too late to act. To finish as I started, the youth are those that will inherit the world. If we don't pay their opinions the attention they deserve, there may be no world left for them to inherit. Thank you.
Thanks, Alfie. Some very true words spoken there. If we lose the youth, we lose the future. Our final speaker in this competition is Anushka Patuk.
Hello, esteemed listeners and adjudicators. My name is Anushka Patuk, and I will be speaking to you on the motion, is Europe listening to its young people today? Personally, I'm very sorry to say that I do not believe that this is the case. However, I do believe that this motion is particularly apt in 2022, as this year has been declared the European Year of Youth. This is an EU initiative that aims to shine a light on youth in order to allow them to build a better future, one that is greener, more inclusive, and of course more digital. While I do ardently believe that this is an admirable concept, I do also feel that it must be noted that overall there is a blatant disregard of the interest of youth in politics. Legions of young people have reported that they feel ignored by governments and political systems. But what is the reason for this? Is it that they're not making an effort to have their voices heard? This is not the case. Through pan-European, even global initiatives like Fridays for Future, young people have brought their potent passion for political issues like climate change to the forefront in a way that begs to not be ignored. Is it that young people aren't engaging with politics? When asked whether he felt young people are ignored by mainstream politics, Professor Bobby Duffy of Public Policy and the Director of Policy Institute at King's College London spoke about a theory called democratic deficit. A theory that says, basically, that because young people supposedly vote less in elections, their vote is worth less to politicians, which is again simply not the case. In the 2019 European Parliament elections, it was those in the under 25 and 25 to 39 age brackets that had the highest voter turnouts. Let me pose you a question. If all the signs point towards young people actively engaging in politics and taking a vested interest, why aren't their voices being heard? Why do they feel underrepresented in mainstream politics? Honoured listeners, I fear the truth is this. Europe does not want to listen to its young people. People are reticent and reluctant to admit or acknowledge that, for all their idealism and inexperience, the young of Europe are truly innovative too. However, all is not lost in that regard. Through initiatives like Comhairle na nÓg and Dáil na nÓg, young people have been enabled to make an impact in their own way. After all, it was with the Comhairle na nÓg campaign for reduced transport costs that led to a 50% reduction in student leap card travel fares. Youth engagement truly is the future for Sligo, for Ireland and for Europe. After all, Mara Gera an Seanachal, or as the saying goes, Mullen Oaga agus Chucky Shi. Praise the youth and they will flourish. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anushka. You certainly gave us some very interesting perspectives on the concept of democratic deficit. So that concludes our competition. I would like to say thank you to all of the competitors. We've certainly had a series of passionate and measured arguments, and I'm now going to hand you over to Judge Kieran Timmins to give us some general feedback on what we heard today. Kieran, over to you.
I would like to firstly thank the organisers and the schools once again for organising this important competition. And of course, to congratulate all of the young people who went to the trouble of preparing a speech and then delivering it potentially to a very wide audience. Now, while there can be only one winner in any competition, it is really important to accept that this is a great experience wherever you come in the competition, to simply stand up and speak and express yourself. So congratulations for actually taking part in this competition. So you're all winners in that respect. It is particularly important that the question this year, is Europe listening to its young people, is an opportunity in this competition to do just that, to address the people who you're hoping to listen to your message. And this year, the two strong points that were made by very many of you were mental health and, of course, the environment, and a concern among many of you that you're actually not being heard. Now, 3 minutes in a soapbox is a very compressed time to deliver a strong message and to persuade your audience that you have a very valid point that needs to be heard. Speaking to camera is a different skill and perhaps a little bit more difficult than speaking to a live audience. And that is a further challenge. So again, well done on that. A final word from our discussions after watching these speeches. We had a conversation among the judges, just reviewing overall the messages that were delivered. And the important thing I think we take away is that you have an important message, in fact, important messages to deliver, messages that need to be heard. So I hope this will be the beginning of that process and not simply one competition. So well done, everybody, and we hope to hear from you again in the future.
Thanks, Kieran, and to all the judges, and I certainly echo your sentiments about the standard of the speaking at this competition is just fantastic. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our hosts, Sligo County Library, to say thank you to Studio Row for their extensive technical support for this online event, and to thank Brenda Cawley from Europe Direct to organise the event. Most of all, I'd like to give a sincere thank you to all the participants from Sligo, Leitrim and Mayo, and their parents and teachers who made this happen. Thank you all. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. We are now going to announce the winners of the Europe Direct Sligo Soapbox Speech Competition 2022. Sligo County Librarian Donald Tinney will now announce the winners.
Welcome to Europe Direct Sligo Soapbox 2022. The theme for this year was, is Europe listening to its young people? The two categories are 16 and under and 17 and over. The overall regional prize amount is €1,000. First of all, I wish to thank Brenda Cawley as Europe Direct Manager for organising the event, Maeve McCormack for acting as MC, the adjudicators Eddie McGurn, Kieran Timmins and Marie O'Connor, and James and his team from Studio Rove for providing the online platform, and of course a special thanks to all of you who entered this year. In the under 16 category, the runner-up is awarded to Shane Dunleavy, Trinalore, Midfield, Swinford, County Mayo. And the winner is Shauna Walsh from Trinalore, Midfield, Swinford, County Mayo. Congratulations to you, Shauna. In the 17 and over category, the runner-up is Alfie Byrne from the Grammar School, Sligo. And the winner is Anushka Pathak. Congratulations to you, Anushka. Well done. That completes the results of Europe Direct Soapbox 2022, and I hope you will enter again next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donal, and congratulations to all our winners. All that remains is for me, Maeve McCormack, to say thank you very, very much for joining us for this competition, and we hope to see you face to face in 2023. In the meantime, good luck to our finalists in Dublin. Thank you.